Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to absolutely shatter a deeply held workplace illusion. We are looking at some hard data that proves our supposedly universal definitions of employee success. Yeah, they're actually completely broken. If you have ever wondered why your team's top performer bristles at a new change initiative, or why a simple policy update causes totally different reactions across your department, well, you're in exactly the right place.
We ask this deceptively simple question all the time. Whether we're designing competency frameworks, writing job descriptions, or sitting through performance reviews, we just kind of expect a universal answer. We assume everyone agrees that traits like adaptability, or empathy, or a willingness to learn are just inherently good things. But as we're about to see, the data reveals something pretty shocking. The workforce fundamentally disagrees on what success actually means. So this insight comes from a massive data set, based on over 3,000 responses to a survey spanning 96 countries and 26 languages, collected over 4 years. Researchers found that the global workforce is split into completely opposing camps. When asked what makes someone successful, the answers didn't just vary slightly, they actively contradicted each other. And the crazy part? It had nothing to do with age, seniority, or the job market. It actually came down to deeply rooted underlying value systems.
Okay, let's dive into this. Think about the so-called ultimate workplace trait, adaptability to change. In modern management, agility is basically a corporate religion at this point, right? But the data reveals a stark divide. For one side of the workforce, adaptability shows a really strong positive correlation with success. But for the other side, it shows a consistent, strengthening negative correlation. That literally means a massive chunk of your workforce actively views adaptability not as a virtue, but as a flaw.
Now, what's genuinely fascinating here is the friction it reveals. What one group experiences as the absolute obvious marker of competence, treating agility as a competitive weapon, another group experiences as a total threat to continuity, belonging, and standards. It's like one side is yelling, "Pivot fast or die," while the other side is saying, "Hold on, if you keep pivoting, you are destroying the very trust that makes this team function."
Let's map out these different viewpoints using the 7 spiral dynamics value systems. We've color-coded them to show how each group prioritizes entirely different core drivers. And just to be clear, this isn't about who is more evolved or less mature. Not at all. It's simply a precise map of what each value system already believes a workplace should reward.
All right, Section 1, the drivers of disruption. That's orange, yellow, and red.
So, for the performance-driven orange system and the results-driven red system, adaptability is fantastic. But soft metrics? Yeah, they're out. Orange actually rejects empathy and honesty as success markers. Why? Well, because in highly competitive, metrics-driven environments, telling an uncomfortable truth can literally be a career obstacle. They're calibrated to whatever the system actually rewards, which is KPIs. Similarly, the red system rejects empathy and a willingness to learn because they operate in high-pressure, crisis response environments. For red, success is visible, direct impact, and being direct, that shouldn't be penalized as having low emotional intelligence.
Now the yellow system looks at disruption and says, hey, don't put me in a box. They bet on fluid contextual intelligence. They actually reject static trait labels entirely. To a yellow thinker, asking if they have a willingness to learn feels completely reductionist and rigid. They don't want a little checkbox on a competency form. They want an environment designed so that learning and adapting are structurally inevitable. They're rejecting the label itself, not the actual substance of learning.
Okay, moving on to Section 2, the protectors of continuity. That covers green, purple, and blue.
It is absolutely crucial to understand that not everyone worships at the altar of disruption. For the green system, which usually pops up in environments prioritizing psychological safety, change is only acceptable when it's co-created. When leadership just drops constant top-down pivots on a green team, they don't see it as agile innovation. No, they see it as an erosion of the community trust required for them to even function. Green isn't stuck in their ways. They're just protecting the trust that makes any change durable in the long run.
And this brilliantly illustrates the divide even further. The purple system really needs stability to protect kinship and shared learning. Think of legacy institutions or family businesses, right? They welcome learning for sure, but progress without protected continuity just feels like cultural amnesia to them. Then you have the blue system, which you'll find in rule-governed spaces like manufacturing or compliance. Blue demands that evolution be structured, authorized, and codified. To blue, adaptability isn't a virtue if it's just ungoverned chaos disguised as innovation. They are deeply loyal to standards that took real effort to build.
Which brings us to Section 3, the hidden empathy metric. Let's look at the turquoise outlier.
Amidst this massive battle over adaptability, disruption, and continuity, there's this one hidden metric quietly tracking in the background, and it belongs to the turquoise value system. Turquoise showed the dataset's absolutely most internally consistent signal, a repeated positive correlation with empathy across all 4 measurement waves, from 2022 to 2026. So while orange was rejecting empathy for KPIs and red was rejecting it for impact, turquoise was consistently voting for it as the defining characteristic of success.
Turquoise is basically betting heavily on relational depth and holistic integration. They recognize that individual achievement metrics often just fail to capture true value creation. Essentially, Turquoise proves that if empathy doesn't show up in your success metrics, your framework is fundamentally leaving out the glue that holds the entire system together. They aren't just being sentimental here. They are observing a critical success factor that mainstream scorecards completely drop.
Finally, Section 4, Redesigning Workplace Success. How do we take this from theory to action?
So, what does this all mean for you as an HR professional, a manager, or a team leader? Well, you need to shatter that one-size-fits-all illusion immediately. The actionable takeaway here is to follow these 3 specific steps to redesign your competency frameworks based on value system fit. Stop assuming everyone defines success exactly the way you do. You have to identify what your specific team optimizes for, and then actively translate your success criteria to match their unique operating system.
Here's what that actually looks like in practice. If you're pitching a new framework to an orange metrics-driven team, anchor your language in strategic agility. If you're rolling out a change to a blue compliance-heavy team, don't call it flexibility, pitch it as structured, authorized evolution. For a green team, frame that exact same change as co-created community building. And for a red team, evaluate them on delivered impact without penalizing their directness against some rubric that was built for someone else entirely.
Let's look at a really practical, everyday example.
This back and forth illustrates exactly what happens when you make a simple management change without translating across these systems. Imagine your operations lead removes empathy from a performance rubric just to simplify evaluation. The blue team member looks at that and thinks, wow, accountability just eroded. Who is responsible for how people are treated now? But the orange team member? They're thinking, good, finally our performance output isn't diluted by soft metrics. Literally, one single policy creates completely opposing lived realities on the exact same team.
Which brings us to the final, and frankly most critical question you must ask yourself about your own organization's competency framework. When you praise adaptability and punish resistance, are you actually just enforcing one specific worldview? And in doing so, is your definition of success quietly penalizing the very people, the protectors of continuity, standards, and relational depth, who are literally holding your team together? It's really time to take a hard look at your scorecard and make absolutely sure it's measuring what actually matters to the people playing the game.